Yeah, it helps stop anal leakage.
Welcome to the Beat Around the Bench podcast about woodworking, good times, and general jackassery. With your hosts, Jess of Jess Build It, Colton of Colt Crit, and Ross of RNC Woodworking and Designs. You can find us all on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. On this week's episode, we discuss the benefits of having employees. Colton sends one of his employees to the whoscow. Jess sends his crew packing. And Ross has a brutal time with geometry. All of that and more is coming right up on this week's episode of the Beat Around the Bench podcast. Now for episode 70, Austin Powers, the spy who shagbarked me.
All right. I like it.
Shagbark. Yeah. Where's that tree from?
Yeah, I've never heard of it.
The tree we had last week, or was it 2 weeks ago? 2 weeks ago. The hairy oak. Was that it?
Yeah.
No, shagbark is a form of hickory.
Oh.
It's like one of the offshoots of the hickory family. We have a ton of it up near me.
Fancy a shag? Yeah.
So,
all right.
Yeah. Do you fancy a shag?
You know why they call it that? I've never seen it.
Because it literally sheds its bark as it's growing instead of just expanding it. It literally loses it and then fills in the gaps.
Gotcha.
It's almost like molts it each year.
I gotcha. All right, very good.
So that's fun.
Yeah.
So, gentlemen, welcome to episode 70. Yes. How are you boys doing?
70. It's been a hell of a freaking week, man.
Let's hear about
it. Very surprising.
Hold on. Wait. Hold on.
I don't want a drum roll for this one. It's sad.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Oh, no, it's okay. It's okay. Yeah, what was it? Just yesterday. All right, so I'm going to try to leave out names and details that are too in detail, I guess. But we were at a very high profile move out, right? Or like we're handling like all the really fine art and nice furniture, right? Out of this house, and our sister company is doing all like the contents and textiles and whatever. And we had the cops called. We called the cops on one of our own guys out at the site, and and he's a guy I've been working with him since we got here, and he's our youngest, and I don't so much potential and promise, man, but yeah. So I'm driving into College Station. Right. And so for me, it's maybe about an hour and a half drive from Houston. And we've been on this site for maybe 9 days, and not in a row, but maybe like 4 days each week. We keep going out. There's just a ton of stuff. I've never seen so much stuff made of ivory. Like this lady has a narwhal tusk. You know what a narwhal is? Yeah. Like the unicorn seal, basically unicorn
whale. Of the ocean.
Yes. She has a narwhal tusk. She keeps on top of her grand piano. Like, there's
as one does. Where else are you going to put a narwhal tusk?
I think I've talked about this house a lot. We've been working on a long time. You know, she has like original Picasso pieces.
Yeah.
We finally moved that giant piece today. Like it's a giant wooden framed, really old painting. It's I can't remember what I said the measurements were before, but its actual measurements are about 9.5 feet by 6.5 feet. But we got that in a crate and safe today. But so yesterday on my way into College Station, the homeowner calls me and she's like, I'm missing a gun. And it wasn't even technically her gun. Like her late husband was a high profile dude, and it was his, but I think it kind of belongs to like a museum or something. I don't know. But she was going to get sued over it too. And in turn, XFR was going to get sued, and I immediately started vouching for our guys. And as soon as we get on site, I was like, yeah, so I get the call. I'm like, we'll address this very first thing as soon as we get there. And sure enough, we have a serious talk with the boys, and we just describe the gun. We're looking for like a nickel plated and has like a wood handle. And then a little bit after we split up, another one of the guys texts me. He's like, "Hey, we need to talk in private." And lo and behold, he had information, and it led to one of our guys getting arrested. And oh, yeah, and
grand felony. Yeah, it's grand theft.
yeah, and it gets worse too. But and he's not a bad kid. Like, we were working him into leadership too, man. And I don't know. Like, he doesn't seem like a drug addict or anything, man. But I'm like, I know they all smoke weed, not exactly like on site, right? But I know they're doing it in the evenings and like probably in the morning sometimes. But yeah. And then so we had reason to believe that, and then cops came, interviewed him, and they were like, they had to search my truck, and he had stashed his backpack so he took the gun home, brought it back, and like stashed it in my truck. And I don't know, it was the most heartbreaking thing I've ever had. And like, I guess to top it off, he had some drugs in his backpack too, on top of the gun. And so that's like together, like, yeah, he just turned 20, maybe a month, 2 months ago. And potentially he could not see another day of his 20s as a free man. And so, me and Rick are looking at it like from our point of view, or like from how could we have affected him better, right? And like just last week, him and then Rick and Rick's wife, Susie, she's active in the business on the back end, like had really big talks with him, and like about like, hey, getting your act together and like moving forward. And like, we thought he was going places, right, with XFR, and then he pulls this junk. But
he's going places with the Texas penal system.
Yeah. And yeah, he may be over 30 next time he's free. But
is that his first offense? Do you know?
I don't think he's never been locked up. But, and I know he tries to act all gangster, like, which we had kind of addressed in the shop. We did address in the shop before, especially with the other guys. Like,
you made him wear a dress in the shop.
No dresses worn in the shop.
Yeah,
but
that'll make him a lot less gangster.
Yeah. And so on the other side of it too, the guy who, the reason why we found out some information on it, like that source, like he was a gangster back in the day, and he's tired of going to prison, and he's reformed himself, right? Like I'm a big believer in like your past mistakes don't exactly define you for the rest of your life, right?
Sure.
And
absolutely.
he's one of our best employees. But and he's like, man, I ain't never been no snitch. And like he's like eating himself up about this. But like he came to the conclusion at the end of the day too, is like it was honestly selfish on the guy who committed the crime, that he was going to let us all take the fall. And like, right. I mean, like a lawsuit like that could very much damage or close the doors on XFR, like much less the reputation, and much more, like even less, like cost them their jobs too. And he was just going to lie his way out of it and act like it didn't happen. And so everyone's morally conflicted here. And me and Rick have talked about it a lot, just since yesterday. And yeah, it's been a whirlwind, man. I don't know. And then like not to get all soppy, but like thinking about Flo, he's like a little ball of energy, man. And he was so excited. And, he was talking about like, he used to work in like the restaurant industry, right? And he was really excited to work with his hands and be a man and learn how to do furniture and woodworking and all this. But the dumbass wanted to also do drugs and steal guns. So
the name is Dumas.
Yeah. And so I guess like, I think it comes down to some people, it's all level of fear, right? And if you don't have any fear, you're going to get bit. And it's just like how hard do you keep getting punched until you actually fear getting punched by the penal system or like whatever system. And this guy lacked fear and needed a really dramatic way to put fear in him. So I pray that he comes out on top, like comes out clean and like learns his lesson. So
well, if
that's my week, man.
I don't know. It depends on the judge and his lawyer or defender, but if it's his first offense, he may get like 30 days and a lot of community service, and hopefully he'll learn his lesson.
So there is something
if it's
about
the first
that too.
offense.
So Harris County, which is Houston, is very lenient on that, right? A lot of people like talk smack on like, oh, Houston's letting like drug dealers back out on the street and murderers back on the street. We weren't in Harris County. We were in Brazos County, College Station. They like to make examples out of people, especially drug dealers. And he's likely going to get the book thrown at him, like hard.
Oh boy!
Like I think firearm stuff is right off the bat, like 5 to 10 can be. I don't know. It all depends how it shakes out, but yeah. Which I hope he gets like a smaller sentence, but it's enough for him to learn his lesson, and like instill that fear that you need to have to be a productive member of society. But we'll see, man. Poor guy. But
so how did the homeowner take it?
Oh, that was such a blessing. So the homeowner took it amazingly. I don't think we could have had a better home for this event to happen in, because the homeowner under their name used to have like they either worked with or sponsored or built a drug rehab facility. And so she more than anyone understands like the mindset and like that, I don't know whether you want to call it a disease or not. And that people lose their way. Right. And she was incredibly understanding. And that also helped that me and Rick were presented with an issue and we very quickly and promptly solved it. But yeah, today with the homeowner, it was great. We said a few words about it, and I had a good talk with her yesterday, at the end of the day about it. And yeah, but it's hard. I hate that I had to come to this, but I hope the little guy can get it together. So there we are.
All right. Let's hope so.
Too soon. No.
Oh, sorry. That was the line. Okay.
No, I'm just kidding. That was good.
Like I am like not. I how do I put this? I would like to be more like you on the positive side sometimes, Colton. Absolutely. Because me in that situation, Ross, you will have to believe this. I would have said something along the lines of, I ain't got time for this shit, and would have been upset.
Yeah.
Needless to say. Not in front of the customer, but
Rick was fighting the urge to almost like
it's
I don't want to say beat him, but like spank him like a child, or like just lose it on him. Because he was like he's like my younger brother. He's like Rick's kid. Sorry to steal your thunder there, but he was like a brother, family,
Well, I do understand. I do understand that. Well, that sucks.
Yeah,
that sucks.
Well, speaking of the term brother, to brighten everybody's day, I learned today that Hulk Hogan has his own beer. It's called the Real American Beer.
Really?
And it's a picture of him riding a beer can going, "Oh yeah, brother."
Yeah.
And so I am going to procure some whilst I am here in the great state of Minnesota, and I'm going to report back to the caliber of Real American Beer.
Okay.
Wait, so you said Hulk Hogan or Randy Savage? Well, I guess Randy Savage late.
Hulk Hogan.
Yeah. Hulk Hogan. Dude, I got to save me one if you can. if it's convenient. I want to give that stuff a shot.
Yeah.
I will. I'm going to send you guys a picture of it because it's amazing.
Oh yeah, I mean that's worth it just to buy the can.
Yeah. Yeah. So
yeah.
So what else is
Jess, what's going on in your world, man?
Oh boy.
You
So I'll be vague as well, but we have the salon job is about to. Well, it started today, and then I don't know if I had mentioned this. We've had guests and stuff, but so as you know, the owner also owns those condos. I think I've talked about that a few times.
Yep.
And the railings all need to be replaced really bad. So he's been like poking at me to do it for years, and I'm just like, I'm not doing it, man. Everything's rotten. I don't want to have anything to do with it. Like it's a huge project, and we've got too many other things to do, and I am pretty particular, so I can't. And so eventually, it got to where we like needed like a minute for me to draw some things and get some things ready, like in the office. And I said, well, if you want to keep them busy for a couple days, for like a few days, why don't you get them to do that? Right.
Who is them?
The crew, the guys.
Okay.
And so the idea is they bought the cedar, which is what they're making it out of, brought it back to the shop, cut it up into the parts approximately the size they needed, pre-drilled the holes for the banisters, which was a really good idea, or balusters, whatever you want to call them, and then pre-painted everything.
Pre-treated? Okay.
Yeah, pre-painted everything front and back, and then put it all together there. Kind of tore one out and put it all together. That way it would be quick, and it's a lot easier to paint that stuff, ahead of time.
Unbelievably so, yes.
Yeah, and so they did just that. I didn't really have much to do with it, and it was so hot.
How hot was it?
I don't know, but it was hot enough that I am now down 2 employees.
Down?
I am now
Did
down
they spontaneously
2 employees.
combust? Like what happened?
Well, one employee basically hid, and he was supposed to paint the stuff while I was working on something else. I was working on this dry bar and drawings and like a little bit of everything. And Friday he did it all day, and then Monday he came in for 6 hours, but it should have taken maybe 2 hours to do all of it, and he took 2 days.
Yeah.
So he sat outside, smoking and doing whatever he wanted to do, thinking I wasn't going to pay attention. So I asked him, I said, so it took you 6 hours to paint, because the second day, all he had left was one side of some balusters. And I said, so it took you 6 hours to paint one side of those. And he's like, yeah, I guess so. And I said, I'm sorry, I can't. I don't trust you anymore. And he was doing it when he was at the place, because the owner came by and like, where is he? Well, he went to go throw stuff in the dumpster. He's like, I was just at the dumpster. He's not there. And so he was just like, that kind of thing. And it's been a constant.
Yeah.
And there was some other things too that he did. So I just said, this isn't going to work. Okay. You're not the caliber, he doesn't know how to do anything. Like he could have been cutting up parts, but he's like, well, I don't, didn't know how to do it. Okay. So I let him go. And then yesterday, the other guy's been over there working on it. And in the meantime, I've hired what will be the supervisor. This guy came in. He's from Illinois, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
He's an actual licensed electrician in Illinois.
Amazing. The best.
Man, a lot of Illinois in the crowd.
Number one. The best.
Single dad. And just knows how to do a little bit of everything. And he's a lot like me, like he's very smart. Everybody in his family's smart. Like I've talked to him. He's from a big family, and he's all about the work. It's important for it to, has he done furniture? No. But does he know how to do like all this other stuff? Yeah. Like he does. And his attitude's fantastic. So
awesome.
So we gave him the job, said we tried out for 90 days, and I brought him in and said that, he was going to help supervise. and I guess called him a supervisor or whatever. And the other employee did not like that. I don't know if he wanted to be the supervisor. I don't know if, he's like, I don't need this many bosses and all that stuff. It's like, he's not your boss. He's just helping look out over things, and he was hot and tired and sick of that stuff. And he didn't want to be doing it. The funny thing is he was offered to do these when he started on the side as extra money, and he never did it. He never did it. And so that was kind of like, he used to have his own business, and he just doesn't want to work for somebody else. That's what we really kind of came. I said, what do you want? He's like, I don't know. I don't know. And he just doesn't want to work for somebody. He wants to be able to go smoke when he wants. He wants to be able to go, take 45 minutes to an hour for lunch and go get something. Like, he wants to come in late. Like, he just doesn't want anybody to tell him how to do anything specifically or when to do it. And he's missed, I can't even tell you how many days or half days. It's always something, and I've been very lenient with it. And so I'm just like, man, if you don't want to be here anymore. He's like, no. He's like, well, I don't leave you hanging. I was like, just go. Like, I mean, if you want to go finish that thing today, then go do it. I was like, but they're planning on selling their house that they're in and moving back to Ohio. So, anyway.
Dude, that is some major changes, man.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we've got a new guy and lost the other two that I spent all that time, past 2-3 months training.
Oh, so, that is costly.
And then I have to have this salon stuff done by the day after Labor Day, which is in just a couple weeks. Fortunately, Ross has spent many months previously telling me I needed to use SketchUp. And this dry bar, the one before this bar that I did, very odd, very weird angles, very strange shape. And I drew it pretty much fully in SketchUp. And I just said, I'm going to stick to what this says. And and you can measure like anything in there too, which is really cool.
Mm-hmm.
And, printed it out, and when I put it together, it was so perfect. I made a little template and I stuck it on the wall, and it was so perfect. And I'm like, this is just crazy. How did I ever draw anything? So,
welcome. You're welcome.
I feel I've drawn the salon. I've spent a lot of time drawing that. It's actually a pretty simple build. It's mostly square stuff. There's one thing that's round on one thing, but that's not due right now. And I spent a lot of time drawing it. They've seen it. They know what it looks like exactly. And so all I have to do is follow that, and I can measure anything I want to measure. The only thing is like they're pre-making the quartz countertops ahead of time. And so, and there's very little overhang. So I have to make sure I account for things like the thickness of the laminate, which is not, and that'll start to add up. Like 3 or 4 pieces of laminate, it's like over, close to 3/8 to half an inch. Yeah. No, the laminate's, usually it adds about a 16th. So I just got to make sure that I figure that into whatever I'm figuring out. But we broke it down into parts.
Like pre-laminated card or plywood, where it was like 3/4 inch with an additional.
Yeah, it's all 3/4 plywood, but it's getting Formica, as a matter of fact, because FYI to the country, the main thing for Wilson Art is in Texas, and it was messed up during the hurricane. And they've been down, plus that blue screen thing with the computers messed them up. And so Wilson Art's working 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, trying to get back up. But the lead time is triple. And I wasn't going to be able to get it in time. So they had to repick a new product. And then there's a company in our town that is a Formica dealer, and they were able to get it in a couple days. So we had to change that. So I just got the material yesterday.
Okay.
So I'm starting tomorrow, and it's going to be a wild dash to make all this stuff. So hopefully we can get it done. If I just set goals of what needs to be done on what day, it'll all work out. It'll all schedule out.
Absolutely.
Maybe work a little bit extra each day, but I think we'll be okay.
Especially if you say, like, break it down into manageable goals where it's like by the end of the next 3 days, we need to have all the boxes for the cabinets built. By the next 2 days, we need to have all of the drawers built. By the next, and just like break it into 1 or 2 day things, and you'll be surprised how quick that stuff gets pounded out.
Oh, and I bought, so there's one thing that doesn't have it. It's like the drawer boxes are a different, like they're real deep. So I couldn't use it for that, but there's only 6 of those drawers. I bought my favorite place, Rugby, sells pre-finished solid wood finger joint drawer box sides with all ready to go, 6 inches tall. So all I got to do is cut it to length and dado it. And then I don't know if I'll pocket screw it. It's 5/8. I don't know if I'll try to pocket screw it or some way to fasten it properly, but that'll save us. You know how long it takes to edge band drawers. Oh my God, it takes
absolutely.
Forever. So that'll save us a lot of time. Plus, it'll be a better product.
Cool.
Yeah. It's like $16 a stick. Nice. It's totally worth it.
Yeah. As far as the edge banding, have you tried the roll-on stuff? You put on with like a J roller?
I know what you're talking about because you told me about it. The pressure sensitive deal.
Yeah.
I didn't even try to find it. I mean, we have hundreds of feet of the other stuff.
Oh, if you already had the other stuff in stock.
Yeah, and so I wanted to, use that up. I will say, on top of everything that's been happening, I've been going over to my house and working at night, and we've got we got all the electrical ready to go. I got to plaster this. I got to hand texture all the ceilings. I got 2 rooms done last night. I've got to hand texture the rest of the house, and then we're going to do texture on the walls. But I'm going to have that Justin guy who's the electrician. He helped put some of the whole house didn't have any lights, none. It's switched outlets, so I had to run a wire.
2 things. Number 1, please tell me as soon as the house was wired up with lights, you turned them on and started singing the "It's Electric."
No, I didn't. The lights aren't in yet because they're all LED like ceiling mount. So when I'm done doing the ceiling and painting it, then I'll put them in. But we ran all the wires.
I can tell you if you want. I learned at, I want to say it was Home Depot, but I know they also have them at Lowe's. You can buy construction site or job site light outlets. That's literally just like the screw-in part for the back of a bulb, and then 2 tails coming off of it that wire up to everything. So you can wire up all the switches without putting in the final lights, and that way you have light everywhere you need to work. But they're just like $3 or $4 for one of these things, and it's literally just the butt end that screws in.
So there literally wasn't even a light socket in the house at all.
I know, but you said you wired it, right?
No, there's just wires hanging out of the ceiling, and they're
but that's what
hooked up.
This is just like open wire that you can just throw a wire nut onto.
Well, but that gave me a reason to buy like really nice LED work lights. So
nice.
There
we go. That's the edge.
My question number 2. You said you textured the ceiling. Do you have to texture the walls?
So
can't you just leave them as regular drywall?
They're not regular drywall. They're sand finish plaster. It looks like stucco on the inside of my house. It is not attractive.
That sounds awful.
It is awful. Not to mention it's been patched 100 times over the years, so there's like clumps everywhere. My first house that I ever owned, they had popcorn ceilings and they were painted, right?
Yeah.
You can't scrape that off. And so I did like this Italian texture on it, which is kind of heavy, but before it set, I knocked it down. And when we got done doing light sand and painting it, everybody used to say stuff about my ceilings. And so I'm like, well, I'll just do it to this house. And it's just drywall mud. It's pretty cheap. And it's real easy to do and fast. And so the walls, the ceiling's very heavy texture with like a hopper. The walls were done with like a sand float, like a sponge float. So we tested it out yesterday. Ashley had couldn't tell what I was talking about, and she likes it, I guess. So
are you able to
We have
describe
this
an
amazing
Italian
system.
texture, like briefly? I'm
Yeah,
curious.
is it like just
Okay.
that Italian hand motion that they do?
So there's
You
like
just, wave your
meatballs,
hands slammed together.
lasagna
That's how you
noodles.
fling the
Ooh.
mud on the wall. You
Yeah.
do the,
Yeah,
Yeah.
like gold chains hanging. No, all right.
Yeah,
So
chest
I
hair,
can
that kind of thing.
I can describe how you do it. So does everybody know what a finishing trowel looks like? Like a regular trowel, like you might see
I
a
mean,
square finishing
obviously, who doesn't? But for those who don't, could you describe it?
a flat
So
blade,
it's a
right?
flat piece of metal. It's got a shank that goes on it, and then there's a handle on the back. You see, like people in concrete
Colton's
use ones
former
with round.
employee is learning about shanks.
Yes, this is true. So
Yeah.
like it's called a finishing trowel, and they make them for stucco. They make them for swimming pools. They make them for a lot of different things. Concrete. Generally, there's even drywall ones, as it turns out, which I found on Amazon, which are made in Germany, and they're amazing. And I bought one, and I'm like totally in love. But anyway,
It's the Germans. So efficient.
so you buy the pre-mixed drywall mud, and you mix it up, add a little bit of water, because it's usually pretty stiff, a little bit of soap, by the way, dish detergent to your mud when you whip it up with a drill, and it makes it fluffier and lighter. It helps aerate it, and it smells good. And I have a hawk. A hawk is a square 14 by 14 piece of magnesium with a handle in the middle underneath. You put your mud on the
Not
hawk.
to be confused with a hawk tua. Very
Yeah,
different.
hawk to a
Oh,
totally different.
that's a good little alley oop there.
So you'll see plasterers use them. You put the mud on the hawk, and then you take and put a little bit on the front of the trowel, a little dollop, right? Mud on there.
Just the tip of it?
Yes, just the tip. You put the white
Just to
stuff
see if
just
you
on
like
the
it.
tip. Yeah.
Okay.
And then you kind of spread it to the ceiling or whatever substrate you're going to. And then before you pull your trowel away, you lay your trowel flat on the substrate and slide it off, kind of like in an S. So it makes like this S, like almost like slide mud thing. It's kind of hard to describe, but kind of like smears it. And then, you do that randomly, like in different sizes all over. And you let it set up a little bit, tack up, and it depends on what you're doing it over. If it's a painted surface or a porous surface, you got to let it set up more or less. And then you come back and you start troweling it down in different directions. And you get rid of all that smear, and it kind of flattens out. And it leaves little voids where the popcorn is, or in this case, the sand finish. And it is gorgeous. It is absolutely
My
Interesting.
OCD just started going nuts. There is not a chance in hell I would let somebody come in and put in random size S patterns that you kind of smear around and leave some gaps. Not a chance in the world.
What if they called it Italian and told you it was fancy?
No.
So if you go to some
Just because it's
Olive
fancy
Gardens,
doesn't mean it's not ugly.
if you go to some Olive Gardens, you'll see where they've tried to mimic it with drywall mud and then faux painted it. That's a pretty heavy texture. If you don't knock it down, it's very heavy. Too much for me. But this is the fastest and easiest way to cover it, and it makes for a real pretty light texture, much better than the popcorn. And I thought about spraying it with a hopper and doing a heavy orange peel, but I don't want to do that. And you can roll mud on it and then knock it down. I don't like that. So
we have this amazing technique up north, north of the Mason-Dixon, if you will, where we don't do any of that crap. And we literally just have flat walls and flat ceilings. And then we can coiffure the ceilings, and you put in fancy, trim work, or you can put in chair rails and wainscoting, if you will, to dress things up. But you don't worry about this popcorn ceiling or textured walls.
Yeah.
No, that's not a thing we do up
You think it's a Southern thing?
Well, they do that. No, it's a poor workmanship thing.
Okay.
Because it covers poor drywall. That's why they do it everywhere. It has nothing to do with preference. It has to do with covering up, taping and texturing it, taping it in like 2 coats, and then coming back and spraying the whole thing down with mud, and then either leaving it or knocking it down or whatever. So I don't know why.
I'm looking up at the ceiling in my hotel room, and almost every hotel room I stay in has popcorn ceilings.
Yeah, because it's concrete.
Yeah, exactly. That's why. But yeah, not my favorite.
Not my favorite either, man. Not my favorite either. Well, once I paint it, I'll send you some pictures, and I think that you will like it. I thought about trying to skim it, and I kind of like pretended to try, and there's no way. It'd take 3 coats and a lot of sanding, and I'm not doing that. So,
What if you were to try like just knocking off the popcorn?
This is plaster. It's rock hard. It's rock hard. It's like concrete. You can't get it. Actually, it's harder than concrete. There's no knocking it off. And the old popcorn ceiling that I did it on in my first house was painted, so there was no knocking that off either. So that's why I chose to do it this way. Normally, I am like you, Ross. I want it smooth. I like a nice smooth wall, and I would even settle for some orange peel on the ceiling if I had to pick something. But smooth is the way to go. But I just didn't have. I just can't leave it sand finish. And once it's all painted, it'll be nice.
I have a thought on that.
Okay.
I wonder if this is $1 million idea. Okay, so you're saying because it's painted, it makes it difficult to scrape. That makes sense, right? Like
impossible.
Yeah, like whenever you start scraping it, it would be like peeling the paint up, and it'd be clumping and all that.
It'd be ripping the drywall off. Yeah.
Like if there was a way you could do it without damaging the floors, like maybe you have to cover the floors first. But I'm picturing like spraying some sort of like, depending on the paint, obviously, but like some sort of retarder or like an acetone or just some sort of chemical that gets into that paint and weakens it or powders it somehow, like loosens it up to where you could scrape that. I mean,
there is actually an option.
Oh, that
put more drywall over
and
the top of it.
Not spraying a chemical. I only know of this because my local Festool dealer sent me an update today on some new products that they have.
You're gonna Rotex the whole ceiling? I'm just kidding.
Yeah,
they actually have They actually have a wand, like a stick version that is made for sanding ceilings. Yep. And they also have like diamond plated versions of the sanding paper that are made exactly for this. And it's a full Festool vacuum system as well.
Yep.
And that now they also have like an exoskeleton you can get to put around your body to hold up your arms so that you don't get tired. But
no way.
I'm wondering if there was a chance you could like rent one of those systems from somebody and just knock down all the
I don't think you understand. It's not, well, in my house now, it's not popcorn.
Well, and what I'm saying is they have like a diamond coated sandpaper kind of disc that you can use for concrete. That's what it's made for.
I just don't
like concrete ceilings.
You would never get it even. You would never
not with
get
that
it
attitude.
even.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say.
So I will tell you something interesting. The guy that lived in the house before me was buying all kind of tools. We still don't know why this guy did this, right? He had these houses that he owned. And before he passed away, he was really close with their neighbors, who's my neighbors now. And he's like, here, just take these things. I'm going to die. Like, take these tools. Oh. And he gave him a brand new Porter Cable version of what you're talking about, Ross. The wand with the vacuum and it's a foam disc on it. And it's got a shroud. And it's made for sanding drywall finish. So he said that I can have it. He doesn't want it. And it's just been sitting in his garage, which is nice. So I am going to use it to sand the ceiling a little bit. But there's no getting rid of the sand finish aside from covering it.
You want to know something else that's interesting?
Digging holes in it. What's that?
Hippopotamus fart to control their buoyancy.
Nice.
Oh, really? That's nice.
You're welcome.
I fart so people can enjoy my upset stomach.
Oh, hey, that's fun. Good for you.
Yeah, I try to give
like
out
a floating.
So I will tell you. So I tried cutting that plaster in that house with, even though it's only like the actual plaster part's only maybe 1/4 of an inch thick, maybe 3/8. and it ruined all my blades. It ate through 2 hole saws, bimetal hole saws, where I cut out the lights. And so I'm like, I got to go get something different. So I always knew, because there's lath in the corners, you could cut it with a diamond grinder, but man, it makes a huge mess in the house. And so I bought the grout removal buzzy blade.
Buzzy.
Whatever you got, oscillating blade. That thing cuts through plaster like it ain't no joke, and it doesn't wear out. It's the best $35 I've ever spent in my life. So, like, I had to do plumbing and some other things, and I used that to cut the holes, and it works freaking perfect, and it hardly makes any dust. So,
have you ever used one of the circular saw blades that is made for cutting Duroc?
Yeah, that's
those
a good
work
idea.
Pretty well too.
But
that would cut through the plaster really well.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I was all about minimizing dust because the air conditioner running, and I hold the vacuum up to it, but it only works so good, you know. But all the plumbing's done, all the electrical's done. All I have to do now is finishing things. Thank God. Put in a pot filler to moving outlets, to moving plumbing for the refrigerator, like all kind of stuff. So, well, I do still have to build a couple walls for the laundry room and the garage, but I don't have to do that right now. We're just trying to get in.
That's on to making fun stuff with the laser for the house.
Heck yeah.
Like, home is where the heart is.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You should make like a little, like a, you know, like the wine holders, like it goes on a bottle of wine, holds 2 glasses. Do something like it's wine time, or one of those. Like, let's whine about it, or I don't know, something. Those cheesy mom quotes.
Had cases, boxes and boxes of signs, and she sold a lot of them before we moved. And I think we've decided in this house there's going to be next to no silly signs. I think we're going a totally different route.
You can consider yourselves #blessed.
Yes.
Live, laugh,
home
love.
is where the heart is. Yeah, no live, laugh, love. No big words up on anywhere. None of that stuff. It's going to be all light and airy and a little more modern, organic stuff.
I love the ones like, you know, like the hand stitched, like monogram ones. I've seen some funny ones. It's like, looks like your grandmother made it, but it's like, please don't do cocaine in our bathroom, you know, stuff like that.
I really enjoy when people take some of those signs and they move them to different parts of the house. Like my favorite one, somebody took one that was supposed to be in the kitchen and they moved it to the bathroom. And the phrase on there said, life is short, lick the bowl. And it means something totally different in the bathroom than it does in the kitchen.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Yep.
What about you? Yeah. Oh, by the way, before I forget, I have been wearing your hat. I've been thinking about you a lot, Ross.
Oh,
the hat in the house. It is trashed out right now with drywall mud and sweat and insulation and all this other stuff. But I don't know. I like having you with me while I'm there.
Oh,
I appreciate that. I will say I learned a trick from Bourbon Moth on how to clean hats. If you keep either a beard brush or what would be like a shoe polishing brush around, that is actually better for brushing out a hat than having something like compressed air, because that just pushes stuff further down. Whereas the horsehair brushes get in and actually agitate and get everything out.
So I always used to wash my hats like throw them in the washing machine, and that ruins them. The webbing in the back gets all crinkled up.
Structure,
So I literally have found that if I put them in the sink with warm water, not hot, and I have a plastic, like old worn out toothbrush, and I just scrub them with that, rinse them off really good, and then just let them sit and dry, they do pretty good. Dawn dish liquid does pretty good for them.
Yep. It does. To answer your question, it has been a wild adventure in my shop of late.
Oh,
I've been working on getting those projects done for the new bakery that's opening up in the town next to me, and I've had to use locally sourced lumber because it's from the same town as where this piece is going, and it's taken me so long, even though I had done all the work in SketchUp, finding the exact angles and sizes of some of the insets on, for instance, some of the plexiglass that was going in, because there's a the front of this is a the main piece I'm building right now is a counter display for like baked goods. So like when you walk into a coffee shop and they have those angled display pieces or display cabinets that have like muffins and fruit parfaits and yogurt parfaits and stuff in there, that's what's going to be in there. But I had to make sure that everything matched up as far as the angles across multiple pieces and multiple sizes. But the front panel, I had to build square and then cut the reciprocating angles across it. And it's just been interesting to try and make sure that I had all the pieces of the plexiglass cut to the right size, because they had to be like a half-inch bigger in each direction than the actual openings, so that they were inset.
Mm-hmm.
And trying to not only figure out what way I had to do the glue up, but also how I had to stain everything, because it is plexiglass, and trying to make sure that I didn't basically just stain the plexiglass everywhere. I actually had to dry fit everything, take it all apart, sand all the pieces, mark which pieces went where with some tape, stain the interior part where the inset, where the plexiglass
Mm-hmm.
was going to go,
Mm-hmm.
put everything together, glue it up, clamp it all, and then I'm going to come back. Everything is now built and put together, and I am simply waiting. When I get back on Saturday night, I probably won't have time that night, but Sunday I have to finish staining everything, and then Monday morning I'm going to get a coat of lacquer on all the exterior pieces. But it was one of the more stressful glue ups I've had to do, because it wasn't just one piece going together. It was literally, let's see, 14 joints on one piece that had to go together all at the same time, and trying to make sure they all lined up. The domino was a huge help. I had to remake a couple pieces a couple times to make sure the sizing was correct, but it was wild to work with. But now I'm into the home stretch, and I will be able to, the only thing I have to do is finish staining everything and installing the doors, and then it'll all be done. So
All right.
I'm very pleased with how it's gone. It's been an adventure in geometry and an adventure in math, but it's been a fun challenge. I've enjoyed it.
I feel like you really enjoy the math details, especially with how much you push the SketchUp stuff. Like, I mean, I know I enjoy that. Like, yeah.
It's been wild though, because like on SketchUp, the reason I say it's been wild is because on SketchUp it'll say, okay, the angle that this face piece is coming on is at 27 degrees or negative 27 degrees, depending on how you're looking at it.
Right.
So then I set my saw blade to 27 degrees or negative 27, depending which way you're looking. I set it to the right angle, and it's off by 1/16 or 1/100th of a degree, and you cut everything and it's just slightly off enough to where it annoys me. And I'm like, well, now I need to either make a really small insert piece, or I need to do like a little bit of the sawdust and glue trick to hide that joint. And it's perfect on one part, but like just slightly low on another. So it's been enough that it's annoyed me. And the hardest part is, because there are so many angles, there's really no way to glue it up and clamp it correctly.
Right.
So I've been trying to do as much separate pieces until this final glue up. And then it was just like throwing it all against the wall. Let's hope this freaking works, and we'll see. So when I left the shop, everything was clamped up and in good condition. And I'm hoping, fingers crossed, knock on wood, everything is still good when I get back.
When I did that dry bar, it has like those knife edge face frames, basically.
Yeah.
They're minor. And I dominoed all of it, and I'm like trying to figure out how to glue the thing up without crushing the ends. And so what we did is we saved the cutoff piece, right, which is the opposite angle, and then glued nailed another piece that like overhung it like a couple inches, and then it made like a cleat that went on the end, and like held it, and then I set that in the clamps, and it kind of worked. It kind of wanted to pop up a little bit, but it kind of
So normally I actually do that same trick, and I save the opposing angle, and I'll do the blue tape and super glue or CA glue trick.
Sure.
Because one thing that I was clamping to was 90 degrees and the other side was, negative 27 degrees, the reciprocating angle that I would have had to save the cutoff for was only like, because I cut all the main pieces to full length, and I just cut the very tip of the piece at that same negative 27 degree angle.
Yeah.
The amount of clamping pressure I had to put on to be able to make sure everything stayed straight ripped off the glue or the CA glue and the blue tape like 4 or 5 times. And I ended up having to angle it a different way and use a lot of band clamps. And I don't know that I've ever used more clamps on one piece that wasn't like a massive table all at the same time, but it seemingly worked. And I'm going to make sure that the rest of it is done. Obviously, the other reason I didn't stain the rest of it beforehand was because I knew with all this clamping, I didn't want to put some marring in the wood that I couldn't fix.
Yeah.
So it was an interesting test.
Yeah.
But
speaking of bourbon moth, this is a good reason for you to keep some old whitewood around is if you CA glue your little opposing piece in a couple spots and don't use the tape, but as long as what you glue to it is a softer wood, like real soft, like whitewood, it'll kind of break off and you can just kind of clean and chisel off of the other wood. That'll be the part that gives, you just keep like something really like junky and soft around. I have used that before. Yeah. And it tends to,
that's a good note.
On that note, I had one section on one of the doors that just the piece of wood that I ended up having to use had more sapwood on it than I had hoped. And as I went to go clamp everything to initially put that together, the sapwood edge totally broke off on one like length of the board or on the door. And I was like, well, that's a problem. And I ended up cutting a piece of extra white oak that I had, and I had to splice it in. But the piece that I had was 1.5 inches square because I had to make sure the dimensions of it were wide enough to cover across the entire thing. So I had to like hand pare it back and then put it in, and I used the bandsaw to cut it one way, and then I had to hand saw the other way just to make sure the angles were there. It was definitely a challenge, and I was really bummed that I was on such a time crunch because I really wanted to be able to film it and put it out there because I haven't been able to do a whole lot of that of late. And unfortunately, that's not going to change anytime soon. But it's going to be a really cool piece when it's done. So
dude, I feel
should be this Sunday. I got to deliver it Monday. So
yeah, I feel you on sometimes wishing you had more time on things. Like you're like, I would love to
always on everything.
Take this slow and like, maybe do hand tools. Whereas if you're short on time, sometimes you gotta, saw a router or whatever application is. Yeah, I feel you on that.
So there is one thing I wanted to mention that I did yesterday. Is it yesterday? No, it was the day before yesterday. That I have never done.
About the bowel movement, I don't want to hear it.
That I have never done, and I never thought that I would ever do. And woodworkers probably everywhere would hate this. But
hold on.
I stained walnut.
Oh.
So the designer wanted the inside of this cabinet dark, and I said, I've already bought walnut plywood. Like it was like $110 a sheet. This is like the best stuff I could find. Because it's a really high end piece. And she goes, it should be dark. And so I said, well, I'll do it with Rubio, I suppose. I said, but I'm not going to like stain it and clear it and do all that. And I said, it just won't turn out. So we bought Rubio charcoal, which I had to order from Rubio because like nobody ever has it. And it was, how expensive it is. And I stained the inside box, not the face frames or the doors, those are just walnut, but the inside box and the toe kick and like the walnut shelves, that's all the plywood part basically, with the Rubio charcoal. And I'm going to tell you, it is so gorgeous.
Really?
It is epically beautiful. The grain.
You better post some pictures about it.
I am. The grain. And so with the walnut face frame in front of the charcoal Rubio walnut plywood behind it, it's just so rich. And it almost shimmers because I think they probably use graphite in that stain, probably. And it went on so easy. No streaks, no mess up marks. You know how wonderful Rubio is. No like goofy stuff. Nice and even. And then like you have like one little spot, like you see it, and you go back over at Rubio, you can't tell. It's just perfect. And with the walnut in front of that, it just brings all the black out. And it's actually, I'm surprised. I never thought I would stain walnut, but I guess you'd call that staining it. But it's
adding color to it.
Oh my God, it was just gorgeous. It's just really pretty.
Nice.
It's like flat. It's like flat, that velvety feel that you get from Rubio. It's just really pretty.
Yeah, I guess in a way you more of like put a filter on an image, right?
Yeah.
Like it's like an Instagram filter. It brings out different sides. You're not painting walnut here. Yeah. That makes sense when you put it like that.
Yeah, it's really pretty. I'm surprised, but I like it. It turned out good. Anyway,
cool.
Well, on that note, let's talk about ruining some other kind of wood this week.
Wood of the week.
So this week's Wood of the Week was brought to you by Ross.
Oh.
Ross sent me this, and he had saw it on a TikTok post from a guy that's a turner, and I've never heard of it. So I was like, why not? Let's do it. So this particular wood, I will say, it is only for like turners and people that do small inlays and people that do like maybe like knife handles and stuff like that. It's called buckthorn. Oh. Buckthorn is almost, a shrub. Like it's small, right? Like small.
They can grow into small trees, like 10 to 12 feet tall.
Yeah, and maybe like 6 inches wide.
Massive thorns, like that have poisonous barbs on the end.
Right, hence the word buckthorn, right?
Mm-hmm.
So buckthorn was actually not native to the United States. It was brought over to. It's actually there's more than one. Okay, so there's like glossy or glassy, something like that. Buckthorn. There's different types of buckthorn, but it exists in Europe and Asia, very widespread. And it was brought over to the Midwest and the Northeast United States back in the 1800s. Well, guess what? I don't know if anybody knows the story of the old chestnut and the blight, right? So they brought Japanese chestnut over here back in the 1800s, and it wiped out all the things. And so goes anytime they try to bring something from another country into the United States. Buckthorn grows like a weed. And
yes, it does.
And not only is that a problem, but buckthorn has these big leaves. And so it overtakes everything. Animals don't go in it because it's all thorny and eat it or anything like that. So it just thrives. And then it covers the ground and nothing else can grow underneath it. So it's like overtakes everything. So it's what's considered to be a nuisance or an invasive plant or tree or shrub. But back to the wood part of it. It is mostly what grows here is what's called common buckthorn and glossy buckthorn. And it was pretty, they pretty much brought it over for like use in gardens and hedges to keep like animals out and stuff because of the thorns. But it's like bamboo, like it just goes wild. And the wood of it it's pretty, I would say. It's kind of like a cross between like maybe like a pine and then maybe a little bit of walnut. It's got some almost greens to it and some purples. It's a pretty wood if you look up buckthorn. There is very conflicting information about the Janka hardness. I've seen some stuff as high as 2,000 I don't know which species that is, but generally it's around 1,000. It's right there, just a little bit softer than oak, right?
Yeah,
Like
it's
1040.
I will say from I literally annually have to cut this out of my own yard because my neighbor next door has a bunch and he does zero gardening. So it invades my yard every year. And I would put it similar to walnut, which is, I know, in the 900s range.
Yeah. Just above walnut, just below oak. Yeah.
So it is definitely somewhere in that range. But I can tell you, because I personally deal with this on the regular, by me, there are whole crews that their entire job is to go through our forest preserve system and cut out buckthorn and burn it and clear out everything and hope that native plants come back before the buckthorn does. And I've had multiple companies that I've worked with that literally have like a charity day. And so all of us go and do charity work. And for 4 or 5 years straight, all I did was have to go work in the forest preserve and cut buckthorn all day.
Oh my gosh.
That's what the company wanted to do.
You have a very strong emotional attachment to this wood.
But
not in a good way.
Not in a good way. No, it is not fun to deal with. And when I have to clear, like, even when I cut the stuff in my yard and I try and just pick up the wood to like move it to a pile to burn, I get stabbed in my hands through my gloves. I wear leather gloves when I do it, but like I get stabbed in my hands and that whole area of my hand starts to swell up for like 2 or 3 days. It sucks,
man.
So along with it sucking like that, it is, they also use it to produce natural dyes, yellow and green dyes, natural dyes. It's very popular with people that do carving and turnery because it's free as you know what. Because it's like they just like it's very readily available because they're always cutting it down and stuff. So and it does make a pretty, like that guy, the video you sent me, Ross, was turning like a little vase or something.
Yeah,
it's pretty.
There's a lot of pieces,
some cracks in it.
I'm looking at some of them. I get like a teak vibe. Other ones, I get like a Sipo mahogany.
Surely.
And then like at least a few of these pieces looks almost like a kind of like a more airy like English walnut or something. Like there's it's not an ugly wood.
So one thing that I did find out about this, and I found this on the wood database. You know how we've talked about the rarest woods that there are?
Mm-hmm.
Pink ivory being one of them. Looks like this white and pink wood. This is in the same family. The Rhamnus genus. Yes, considered a relative of the buckthorn. Both species are in the Rhamnaceae family. So it's actually related to that same wood there, which I thought was interesting. But so there you go. You know
what I find amazing is it is massively invasive in the Northeast and in the Midwest, and it is considered something like highly, highly invasive that we are trying to get rid of in every way possible.
Massive efforts, yeah.
Yes, but I find it funny that you guys don't have any of it and you hadn't heard of it before. So like it is such commonplace up by me. It's so wild.
So I've heard of the name buckthorn. I didn't know it was a wood though. And I was trying to think of what in the woodlands just north of me, here in Houston, there's a buckthorn plaza. But I feel like it sounds like the name of a resort, like Buckthorn.
Yeah.
But it's kind of funny. So just now Google searching it. First things that comes up is like, can I eat the seed or eat the berries? And it's a real dark.
They are highly laxative.
Yeah, they're laxative. Yeah, that was the other thing. Too. The berries are laxative, which makes all the birds poop all over everything.
The aids in seed dispersal.
That's how they spread the seed.
Also, it's illegal to import, sell, or transport in Minnesota.
Yeah.
There you go. That's why.
Yep.
Interesting. What a pain in the butt, decent looking tree wood thing.
Huh. Yeah.
Yep. All right. Very good.
So I appreciate you diving deep onto that one. As you can tell, there are some personal touches with me on that one.
We shall never speak of it again.
We probably will.
Do you have a trivia to go along with it?
I do. Ooh. I do have a trivia to go along with it.
Let's get after it. Better get on out that knowledge, cause it's trivia time.
All right, so I thought I didn't do it on invasive, but what I did do is this is a quiz on originally non-native trees to the United States.
Hey, that's fun.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm pretty sure that 60% of this is 20% right. So
Love
we
it.
shall get into
80%
it.
of the
Are
time
you
Your
it
ready?
works
percentages are
every
getting
time.
better with each round of this game.
Yes. All right. We're going to start with Ross this time.
And
Because whenever start Ross,
what style are we doing this? Multiple choice, Jeopardy?
this
What are we
is
doing?
just multiple choice because some of it's kind of hard. All right.
Okay.
There you go. Question number 1: which tree? And I'm going to read this very carefully. Which tree, known for its beautiful white bark, was introduced in the U.S. from Europe and Asia and is often planted as an ornamental tree?
What is
it
birch?
Don't answer. Wait. So yes, you're 50% correct. Is it A, paper birch, B, silver birch, D, river birch, or B, yellow birch?
It is.
Was that
What is
confusing?
paper birch?
That is incorrect.
Oh.
Silver birch is the correct answer. It is striking white bark, delicate foliage, making it a popular choice for landscaping. Same thing. However, it can sometimes outcompete native species.
What was
All right,
the tree
question-
that Ross, after your Spain trip, we talked about that had white bark?
I'm going to look that up. Hold on.
I can't remember.
Well, you answer yours. I'm going to look that up.
So my wedding cake was a birch cake. Me and Ashley's wedding cake. She made it look like birch.
That sounds
Really?
very pulp heavy.
It was very pretty. It was very, very, very pretty, actually. She like airbrushed stuff on it. It was pretty.
Really?
All right. Question 2 for you, Colton. I'm not going to give you the name. This maple is a common street tree in many U.S. cities. Where did it originally come from? I'll give you the name. It's called the Norway maple. Don't let that fool you. It is a common street tree in the many U.S. cities. Where did it originally come from? Is it A, Australia, B, South America? Why do I keep doing that? A, Australia, B, South America, C, Europe and Western Asia, or D, Africa?
C, Charlie. Europe and Western
That is
Asia.
correct. That is correct. The Norway maple, Acer platinoides, was introduced to North America in the 18th century, is now widely planted. Also invasive,
Oh.
displacing native trees.
All of these are mostly invasive. What do you got, Ross? You find it?
There's a few of them. Yeah.
I think it'll.
Holm oak and stone pine are the two that are coming up the
Stone pine.
most.
I can't remember because you're talking about it lines the streets at one place you're at.
Oh, no, I found it. It is London Plane, Plane.
Huh.
Platanus hispanica. The London plane or Highland hybrid plane, often known as Platanus acciferolea.
We got to work on our Latin, boys. I got to be
Yeah,
real.
no joke.
Yeah. But look up London plane tree, Plane tree, and that's the one that has like basically like flat bark.
Oh, yeah.
All right, question number 3, Ross. Which tree, known for its fragrant blossoms, was brought to the U.S. from China and has since become invasive in some areas? Is it, this is a hard one, southern magnolia, B, calorie pear, C, eastern redbud, or D, dogwood?
Oh. It's either going to be magnolia, the southern magnolia, or the dogwood. But I'm going to go ahead and out on a limb and say that the southern
No pun
magnolia
intended.
was, the southern magnolia was actually originated here. So I'm going to say the dogwood is the invasive species,
Well, it's not necessarily invasive,
but not native.
That may be correct. This says the calorie pear is the correct answer, including the popular Bradford cultivar was introduced from China. Its white flowers are beautiful in spring, but also invasive in the southeast.
Is it spelled calorie
I
like
thought
the
you were gonna
Okay,
say it was
energy
moving on
measure?
to question number 4. Callery. Calorie.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I thought it was going to be the
Question.
cherry blossom, based on you said the fragrant
Yeah.
flowers. But
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Question number 4. What tree, originally from Europe, is often planted in the U.S. as a windbreak, but is now considered invasive in many states? Is it, Colton, Lombardy poplar? Is it eastern cottonwood, C, weeping willow, or D, American elm?
Oh crap! None of those stuck out to me. What was the second one? B. What was Bravo?
Eastern cottonwood.
I hate cottonwood.
I'm gonna go with that. Cottonwood.
That is unfortunately incorrect.
Oh, this is a hard one.
It is the Lombardy poplar, or Populus nigra italica.
Dang it, Ross, were you gonna get that one?
I
It
was
is
not.
Very fast-growing tree, originally from Europe. It is an effective windbreak, also spreads aggressively. All right, question number 5 for Ross. Which tree, famous for its medicinal bark, was introduced in the U.S. from the Mediterranean region? Is it A, a sycamore, B, cork oak, C, olive tree, D, Aleppo pine?
I know you've actually covered this.
Yeah, we've talked about medicinal bark before, but yeah, none of those stick out to me either.
I'm going to go with the sycamore.
That is incorrect. This was a wood of the week, I believe.
Mhm.
This was wood of the week. It is cork oak, which is Quercus suber. Is native to the Mediterranean, source of cork for wine stoppers, and it has been grown in California and other parts of the U.S. for corks.
Do you know what medicinal purposes the bark serves?
Well, I mean, it puts a cork in wine, and a lot of people medicate themselves with alcohol. So
Sure.
you
You
guys
could put a
know
cork
that.
up your butt. Oh.
Yeah. It could. It helps stop, anal leakage. All right, moving on. Question number 6.
Can you set that?
Yeah, I think so. Ailanthus, often called the tree of heaven, was introduced to the U.S. from which continent? Is it Europe, South America, Asia, or Africa? And it's spelled Ailanthus. Ailanthus. The tree of heaven.
What was Bravo and Charlie?
South America or Asia?
You said one of them was Europe, right?
Yeah,
I'm gonna go with Europe.
Incorrect.
Wow.
The correct answer is. I told you this was a hard one. The correct answer is Asia. The tree of heaven, Ailanthus altissima, is native to China. It was introduced in the U.S. in the 18th century. Is now considered invasive, especially in urban areas where it outcompetes native vegetation. All right, question number 7. Ross, which tree known for its rapid growth and light wood was introduced to the U.S. from Japan? Is it the giant sequoia, the palowina, Japanese maple, or black pine?
I'm going to say the Japanese maple.
Paulownia? That's incorrect.
Oh, red herring.
Unfortunately, it is the Paulownia. The Paulownia tobentosa is also known as the empress tree. It is native to Japan and China. Incredibly fast growth, and it is often used for reforestation for timber.
I thought that was a grapefruit and tequila cocktail.
Oh,
I do love a Paloma.
Yeah.
Man.
All right, couple more. Stop torturing you poor guys. By the way, I would not have known the answer to any of these. I would just be guessing. To be honest with you.
Okay.
All right, question number 8. Which tree, often used as a hedge, was brought to the U.S. from Europe and has become invasive in many areas? Is not the buckthorn. It is either A, English ivy, B, privet, C, boxwood, D, yew. YEW.
Oh, shoot. Ross looks excited. I think he knows it. Oh. Let's go Boxwood.
Incorrect.
Oh, man.
Ooh,
Do you want to steal?
that's what I
Ross?
was gonna guess.
Oh, really?
It is the privet. Ligustrum was introduced from Europe and is commonly used for hedging. It has escaped cultivation and become invasive again in many parts of the U.S., forming dense thickets that crowd out native species. Couple more.
I have a feeling that Crystal would be better at this trivia round. She knows all like these little like plants. Like we passed by someone's house,
Yeah.
she's like, "Oh,
This
look
is
at that
some
mitochondria!" And like, what are they?
serious horticulture going on here. Okay, question 9. The
Don't
horse.
call his wife that.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. The horse chestnut tree, known for its distinctive spiky fruit, originated in which region? Is it North America, Europe, Africa, Australia?
Europe.
Correct.
Hey, yeah. Is that what we call a crab
one.
apple down here?
The horse chestnut, or Asculus hippocastanum, is native to the Balkan region of Europe. It was introduced to North America for ornamental use, but is not commonly naturalized. All right, last question. I got 5 more, but we'll save that for a guest or something. Which evergreen tree, Colt, introduced from East Asia, is often planted in the U.S. landscapes, but can become invasive in warmer climates? Is it Eastern hemlock, Chinese tallow, Hinoki cypress, Japanese cedar?
What was the first answer?
Eastern hemlock. I'll give you a clue. You need to get to the fat of this answer.
That doesn't help.
Eastern hemlock, Chinese tallow, Hinoki cypress, Japanese cedar.
Let's go Japanese cedar.
Incorrect. It is
the tallow.
Chinese tallow. The Chinese tallow, Triatica cybifera, is native to China and Japan and is widely planted for its attractive fall color. But in southern states, it has become highly invasive and threatening native ecosystems. All right, so don't screw with Mother Nature, as we are learning. What is it? What's some animals, right? Like the pigs, the hogs.
Yeah.
That was that. They're like, you kill
Razorbacks,
those.
for sure.
Iguanas. You can kill iguanas like in the Keys. And then there's which snake is it? Is it the python? It's like just taking over. It's just not supposed to be there because nothing else eats it. Like it's just.
Yeah, there's no predators for it.
Yeah, goldfish.
I saw you'll see it on TikTok once in a while. I'll see it every few years. So there was an area, and I can't remember where it was, somewhere in the Midwest, and it had basically become a wasteland. They released 2 wolves, a male and a female wolf, into the area. And the male and the female wolf had puppies and so on and so forth. And over the course of about a decade, they killed off some of the deer, as they're supposed to do, which were keeping the land from, the deer ate all the grass and stuff, which caused erosion. The stream came back, the trees came back, like everything all restored to its natural habitat just because of these 2 wolves.
Because of
It was actually in Yellowstone.
Yeah.
Yeah, is it in Yellowstone? Okay.
Because of a big family of incest wolves?
Because the wolves kept down the deer.
They actually released, it was not just one pair. They released 3 separate pairs in different corners of Yellowstone.
Oh.
And they kind of carved their own areas. But to Jess's point, for so many years, for literally like 40 or 50 years, wolves had been outlawed. And they realized that they had to try and have a hierarchy of the food chain. And when the wolves came in, they started actually hunting out the deer to thin out the population, the elk and the deer. And they also started migrating the herds a lot more because they couldn't just hang out in one spot. And so they were moving them all around because they were chasing them. And the rivers actually came back to their original path because they were no longer being washed away, or they were no longer overtaking stuff that had no vegetation growing on it. So like they rerouted the path of rivers. all these native plants and other animals came back. Like you have to
Yeah.
have a true food chain. And if you take out one link in there, all of a sudden everything goes wild. The same
Yeah.
thing is happening in the ocean to the point where like they've taken sharks to such a low population level, and sharks eat, things down the food line. And they've noticed that like as they've taken out sharks, it's actually caused a major uprise in jellyfish, because all these other things that would normally
Eat
eat
jellyfish.
jellyfish are being choked out by other things. And so it's a whole issue that like if they don't allow the sharks to be at the top at that apex predator level, everything trickles down from there, and nothing keeps some of these smaller bait fish and other things in check as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it's incredible. Absolutely incredible. It changes the landscape just to a few animals. So anyway, there you go. I mean, I remember I came back on a trip one time and I had a straw hat, like it was woven with palm fronds. We were like at some like resort, and I tried to bring it back, and they're like, no, that plant's not native to the U.S. Agriculture was there. They're like, you got to leave it, my man. And I'm like, are you serious? And I was like, this doesn't eat. And they're like, nope, it's pretty serious stuff. That's why it's illegal to bring fruits and vegetables and stuff, because it really is like a serious thing. So anyway, all right. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed it. Sorry it was so hard.
Oh, it's a good show. Hey, so we tied that one, right?
Yeah.
Ross?
Yeah, we each got one.
Yeah. You know what? Like for a hard one, I'm okay with that. Yeah.
Isn't tallow fat?
Yes.
Isn't tallow like melted fat?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
In what language?
Well, let's drink to our success, Colton.
In English? In English.
The whiskey of the week.
The whiskey of the week coming into this week was the John Emerald Alabama-style single malt. Colton, were you able to procure it, and did it dandy?
Well, if a frog had wings, would it still slap its ass when it jumped? Yes, because it has to land at some point. And so, no, I wasn't able to get it. And you even texted me earlier in the week. We're like, hey, this is be a hard one to get. Should get it, which, yeah, we were out late with, I got back home last night, probably almost 10 o'clock, after the whole, not making excuses, whatever, our guy getting
situation.
But it led to a very cool turn of events. Right. And so, I called around a lot of liquor stores and finally like got a bunch of no's, and I was like, I'm just going to go to Specs. Right. And I got a big one just north of me, and, we went through the system. They don't have it. He was like asking me like, how long has this distillery been around? Like he was surprised he couldn't really find much information on it. The John Emerald. And, which this is one I should have ordered, but it led to a cool rabbit hole. And so luckily I had a very knowledgeable, I had a very knowledgeable guy, and he walked me to the American single malts, and I found a Texas single malt whiskey. So not Alabama.
What'd you get?
But so this is Whitmeyer's, and it's it's all handwritten, like as far as like filling in the barrel number and the bottle and the alcohol by volume.
Cool.
That means it's pretty small production.
Yeah. So this is single barrel proof, uncut, unfiltered. It says extremely limited release. It's a barrel 87, age 31 months, bottle 105 of 108.
That's so neat.
Is that pretty rare? Like, I guess only 100 bottles, right? Like,
so that means that
I guess from this barrel,
that was a half barrel.
A half barrel,
as far as the size of the barrel.
Okay.
Because a normal 53-gallon barrel is going to yield roughly 200 bottles after 8 to 10 years of aging. Whereas if this is a half barrel, that would be why you're just over 100.
Gotcha.
How much was it?
It came in like $64, I think. And so,
not the end of the world.
And how is it? Does it dandy?
Dude, it's freaking hotter than a hoochie coochie, man. Like, oh, dude. Like, so just like on the nose, like it's just gas. It's coming in at 113.7 proof. And yeah, honestly, straight up, like the first pull out of the bottle, it's too hot to dissect, really. But it's very deep. Like It is very dark, and so it is backed up a little bit, but it's just too hot. However, once I let it sit on some ice, it comes across kind of peppery almost, and like kind of like once everything calmed down, and then but like I wasn't getting any of the American single malt kind of almost scotchy vibes until after, like well after, like I had a burp a little while ago, and I was like, oh, there's the scotch. I was like, there it is.
Huh.
And that's very neat. I could see it going well in like a very spicy cocktail, maybe. But
Okay.
yeah, or just like a challenge. It's not too bad with ice. I'll say that.
Okay.
And also, I just noticed on it, it's Houston Distillery. Like it actually says Houston's own distillery, Whitmeyer's Distilling Co. Established 2012.
You should stop off there sometime.
Yeah, I didn't know this was a thing in here. Like Whitmeyer's, yeah, shoot, man, Ross, when you're in town, maybe we could do some work research together.
Maybe.
Yeah. But
maybe.
Man, this, as far as like, especially the first pull or two from this bottle, it's just like, you ever heard Robert O'Kane talk about his bull riding career? Like,
I have not.
The way he describes it is you're in a truck and you're going 70 miles an hour down the highway and you rip your steering wheel off and throw it out the window. That's what bull riding is like. And that's what this one's like, man. It's just, whoo! Like, so we were driving back from College Station today, right? I barely squeezed in time to make it on time for the podcast. I was actually made us a little bit late. But so I had two of our guys with us, and I asked them if I could use their name, or they wanted me to use their names. Yeah. So Mark was in the front seat with me, right? And so when we parked at the house, I busted open. I was like, "You want to try a potentially good whiskey?" And he's like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Whoa!" He's too fire. and then Beto in the back, I was like, "Beto, you want to swig?" And he's like, "Hell no." He's like, I was like, "You want to smell it?" He's like, "I already can." Like just popping it off the top in the front seat, it just filled the whole truck with the aroma of it, and it's definitely a neat whiskey. Like not like drinking neat, but it's neat. And
cool.
I look forward to looking up this Whitmeyer's now that we know it's Houston and seeing what else they got. Like I hope they have like awesome, a tap room, or I guess you don't call it tap room for a distillery, but
be a tasting room. But
tasting room. There we go.
It's funny that you used the term rabbit hole when you said you went over to specs, because the whiskey for next week is actually from the brand Rabbit Hole.
Oh!
It is the Rabbit Hole Boxer Grail, which is their sour mash rye whiskey. And I picked this one for you because I know how much you love yourself a rye. This is actually a product that came from MGP Distillery. But the fact that they are combining a sour mash style with a rye whiskey is definitely different. So I'm excited to get your take. And based on planning, I'm hoping to be sitting next to you when we do this whiskey of the week next week.
No way. Mm-hmm. Let's get it, baby. Oh, yeah. That's going to be... Oh, and we're just wrapping up this College Station job, too. And so I'll actually be home at a decent time.
Nice.
Heck yeah. But
let's get out.
So I've had Rabbit Hole before. I definitely did not have the sour mash rye. But I remember it being like a good whiskey. But this is crazy.
Yeah,
so literally...
It's good. So the hard part with Rabbit Hole is I don't want to badmouth any brand. Sure. I'm not trying to do that at all. But what I find with Rabbit Hole is they have a perception, or they put out a perception that is very high-end whiskey, but the mash bills are not custom mash bills. They are just, other than like this guy, it's a lot more finishing than anything else. Mm-hmm. And the whiskeys are not that much different than something you would get from any other distillery buying stuff from MGP. It's their finishing that makes the difference, and how old some of the product is. So I'm curious to get your take on it. They have since built a distillery in Louisville and a tasting room, and they're manufacturing stuff, but it's going to be a number of years before any of that juice is ready to go. So
Yeah.
as of right now, this is still MGP juice, which is, in my opinion, a better thing than a brand new distillery because MGP knows what they're doing. So I'm curious to get your take.
Yeah, it's literally like my favorite and least favorite whiskey in one, like a sour mash. But whenever we went over the Gentleman's Jack and the rye, which is my favorite, this is going to be goofy. I look forward to it.
Awesome. Well, we will do some planning and get all that coordinated for next week. But I think it's time. Jess has already shared a ton of nuggets.
Yeah.
Let's see if he's got any more up his sleeve.
My nugget this week is two things that I probably said before, but I'm going to
say it again for the people in the back.
Reiterate them. I have even brought up part of this when I did my woodworking class on how important it is to have one of these. I don't care which brand you buy. I really don't. I'll give you my suggestion, but if you're a woodworker of any sort, buy a freaking track saw.
Yeah.
Buy a track saw. The Makita battery powered track saw, and I have very serious, I take my tools seriously, and if it doesn't perform, I would tell you. The Makita track saw, the 36 volt where it has two 18-volt batteries, you can buy like a whole pack on Amazon with the two batteries and the double charger and all that stuff for a reasonable price. I would buy that before I would buy a table saw. I really would if you're just starting out. You can get by with like a little cheap hand-me-down job site table saw before you spend a big expensive one. Get a track saw, because like the stuff that I did this week, and like I couldn't have ever done it as accurately as I did without a track saw. And then the other thing is learn how to use SketchUp. It's free. It's online. The online version is free. Learn how to use SketchUp, and don't wait until you have a project due to learn it. Do it in your free time for fun. Do it way ahead of time. Do it before you even if you're thinking about woodworking, just draw something on there. And there's a lot of free videos. There's some guys out there that have awesome videos for free, and it'll at least get you started and get used to the mouse and moving around in it's probably the hardest part for me.
Shoot.
And learning like where to grab and stuff. And the key commands. But learn, and if you start with a good drawing and you have a track saw, you could just about build a whole kitchen with a track saw and some drills. And I'm not kidding. Yep. It's just such a good tool.
Yeah. On the brand,
I've used mine so much, I have to replace the rubbers on all of them. I've used mine so much.
Yeah.
So it is fantastic. When you're on a job, when you're in the shop, when you're breaking down big stuff, when you're cutting weird angles, when you're cutting big long miters, it doesn't matter what it is. It's just such a good tool. And I know that the Festivals gets a big rave, and I'm sure it's really great, but it's a lot more expensive. It probably, if dust is an issue and you're going to be cutting in customers' homes, I would say get the Festival if you can afford it, because their vacuum.
That is the major difference between like a Milwaukee or the Festival is the dust collection. It is absolutely astounding.
If I hook up the vacuum to my Makita and the Festival vacuum hooks up to it, it gets about 95%, 90% of it. What I will say is don't buy the DeWalt track saw. The Craig one's pretty good, but I've known several people to buy the DeWalt, and it tears. You get a lot of tear out, and the battery does not last very long. Now, if they make like one of those 40 volt or whatever the heck ones that they've got, maybe that's better. But I'm just talking about the one that's like the 18 volt. The battery gives out after just a few cuts, and then you have to keep charging them. So that's the only one I would say don't. I know people that have gotten the Craig. It's not battery powered; it's a plug-in, and it works good. And you get the little Craig table.
The other
and all
one that
actually
stuff. Works really well on that same note, same price point as the Craig, is the Bauer version from Harbor Freight, which is their line that's supposed to compete with like Milwaukee. dude,
Well,
it's
probably
actually
the same.
pretty solid.
Hey, I also want to throw my hat in the ring on brands. So I've been rocking the same Wen track saw that I got on. Granted, it was a Facebook Marketplace grab, but I got it for less than what you would pay taxes on a Festool, like $45, and it came with an extra piece of track. And granted, I wouldn't trust it for an angled cut, but for a 90-degree cut, it has been a workhorse, and I enjoy it. I put a different blade on it,
man,
but like a thin curved blade on it, but it's a good one. I like it.
Yeah.
I haven't
because
I wanted the big, like the 7 1/4 inch blade Festool real bad, and like for a specific project, I was gonna go touch up that big conference room table I made before, and I wanted the extra reach and power, but yeah, I can't get rid of. I can't find a reason not to like this Wen brand though. So
heck yeah, for the money.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's worth it.
Yeah.
Anyway, those are my nuggets. I just thought about how much I used it this week. It's just fantastic.
Colton, what do you got for nuggets?
Have I talked to you guys about face wipes? No, I can't remember if I had. So, I'm sweating my butt off most days, right?
Like huevos.
The what? No,
your huevos.
Sweating your huevos.
Los huevos. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what sweat is in Spanish, but yeah, I'm sweating my butt off, and so. Normally I don't get to shower, like wash my face until I get home, right? And it could be a long time. And so I started keeping these, it's from like, whatever the brand of face wash is. But I keep these wipes and I just like wipe my face and neck down. And man, you feel like $1 million after that. Like whether it's at lunch or at end of the day, it's a good nugget for me. I like it, man. Keeps you clean.
I am actually going to tack my nugget onto yours. We learned about these cloths at Workbench Con. They're called crocodile cloths.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You can get them at Home Depot and Lowe's and a few other places, and they are similar to what you'd have. For those who have never seen it, it's similar to what you'd have out of like a Dude Wipes container, but they are a textured wipe that has something in them that can literally wipe off full paint or stain
Epoxy.
Or whatever is on your hands. And like the first wipe, like just magically it's gone. They work unbelievably well. I had cause to use them again this past week, not only from stain on my hands, but also from, I had to move around some whiskey barrels where the tops were off and the charring on the inside got all over my hands. And I was like, man, I tried washing them 2 or 3 times and it was still there. I got one of these gator cloths and it took it all off like nothing.
I think there's something to be said
just
too
have them around the shop.
About the
crocodile wipes. Isn't that what they're called?
Yeah. So I went to their booth
cloth.
at Workbench Con, and you know, they had one where you put your hand in like motor oil. One was like I think epoxy. Like it was
one was latex paint.
Yeah, and then you wipe it off. I think there's something to be said too about the texture of the cloth. It grips. Like there's like a grip and rip side, which I'm not sure if I'd use that on my face though. Like maybe
you'd be surprised
Does it dry
if
your hands out?
No, it actually has like an aloe or something in it that
My
like
goodness.
re-moisturizes.
I see them at the big box store all the time. They sell them.
Yeah,
So.
honestly,
Pick yourself up.
Like
pick up one of those. Just put it in your truck. So like before you touch your steering wheel after being on the job site, just clean off your hands, and you'd be surprised how nice like it does of getting everything off. It's amazing. So give those a whirl. You can buy a pack for like $4 or $5. It's not real crazy expensive. So give them a try.
I forgot about those.
I had that free one I got at Workbench. I'll give them a shot.
Yeah. I remember I kept them underneath my epoxy pouring bench. And because you always get some on your hands, even though I wear gloves too, or like your forearms. I remember it doing pretty good.
Yeah. All right, boys. Anything else you want to share?
No.
Dude, that wraps it up for me, man.
No. Okay. Well, then, to all the listeners out there, be sure to like and subscribe wherever you're listening to this podcast. And thank you for tuning in this week. We hope you enjoyed every second of this episode. If you didn't, please send all your complaints to our larger-than-life legal representation at Fat Bastards Security Detail and Legal Depot. where their motto is, "We do not care who you done or why you're on trial. We'll make sure all the evidence is disposed of the same way we want to eat your baby. Get in my belly." For Jess, Colton, and Ross, this has been the Beat Around the Bench podcast, and we will catch you all next time.